First, we're going to have Antonio Ferreira, that came straight from Dubai, almost skipping a few adventures due to what's happening there. So glad that you're with us. Pedro Camacho, Nearsoft, doing a lot of business in Africa. And then we have Miguel Corte-Real, who comes in representation of an interesting region in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And at last but not least, Gilles Azevedo, Unicorn Factory, who's going to help moderate and get insights from these gentlemen. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Today we have a conversation about markets that typically are markets that we don't talk much in the Portuguese ecosystem, which is Asia and Africa. And I hope this is going to be a great conversation to change the way we look at these geographies as innovation geographies. So to start with, I'll ask each one of my panel members to give a quick intro so you know the background and what is the key points that they bring to the table and to the discussion. So, Miguel, I'll start with you. If you can do a quick intro about yourself.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I came straight from Saudi Arabia, where I took the project of building a port in a pioneer area in the south, near Yemen, where we have the biggest refinery in the country, from Saudi Aramco. And I was asked to build a brand new international port and also an economic city. So I ended up working for the Royal Commission, for the government of Saudi Arabia. And after 7 years, I am still there. And that's it, basically.
Thank you.
Hi.
Pedro, please.
Yeah. I come from Nearsoft. So I have around 25 years of experience in the area. Nearsoft started 8 years ago, and we're currently doing digital banking and expanding in several African countries at the moment. So the main idea is to share probably my experience and in this continent. Yeah.
And finally, Antonio.
Hi. So my name is Antonio. My experience in Asia started a long time ago, started in 2010. I have a company in Tokyo since 2010, so 16 years now, mostly focusing on innovation for automotive technology. That's where most of my experience is automotive. Then in the last few years, I've moved away from automotive. I've had a great experience in Saudi Arabia at NEOM for 2 years. And now I was recently in Dubai. Unfortunately, I got caught up with everything that was there. My flight was cancelled on Monday. I managed to get a flight on Thursday, so I'm safe here now. But my experience has a lot to do with Japan, Dubai, Riyadh, and also now Singapore as well, which is a hub. So to be honest with you, lately, my background is innovation, but I'm literally chasing where the money is and where you can get the most business.
So great. So we have here actually 3 main geographies represented. We have the Middle East, and with both of you. We have Africa, and we have the East Asia with your experience. Antonio, my question is for the audience that is not so familiar with these markets, how would you describe the current innovation ecosystem at each one of these geographies? And we'll start with the Middle East and with you, Miguel.
All right. So Saudi Arabia has definitely opened up to the world expertise. Let's put it this way. They have absolute mega projects ongoing, as is quite public. And I was lucky enough to grab one of them in the south. And you have to take a look at the Saudi Arabia as a pioneer land where everything is welcome, every kind of technologies, every kind of expertise. And that's why they took me all the way from Portugal to build a port there. And of course, it's still is a cultural place, a culture based in hands-on. It's not so easy to promote technology as the main source, but the manpower is still the main source. So even in some automation questions, we still have to prioritize the manpower as a singular. So it's quite amazing in that for us that work in maritime and port and oil and gas sector, even to be able to bring the the human factor into the table.
Thank you. And Pedro, for you, how would you describe the innovation ecosystem? So the view we have a bit about Africa is that it's still very on the initial steps.
Well, Africa, it's, you know, it's a lot of different countries, a lot of different realities. You have actually some really, really good examples and huge economies at the moment. But on the other side, you have some countries that are, you know, starting the path, others are in the middle. But one thing is common between them is that the average age of the population is very low. So if you compare to Europe, that's probably the worst example, or for example Japan and others, where the population is aging really quick, there's a lot of young population. And with that young population, with the better education, with the communications, with the AI, we're starting to see a lot of new startups. And actually, in Europe and for example, in North America, when we think in a startup, we think we need to have all the, you know, the investment and the conditions. And these people, some of them are very, very creative. They tend to optimize what they have. And a lot of things are happening there. Of course, it's an amazing market, but a huge mistake, and talking about innovation, is going to Africa and try to impose our way of working, because you're going to fail for sure. So listen to them, see what they are doing, and partner with them. And that's the only way you can you know, make business and progress in that market. But in terms of you know, expansion of startups, and the ecosystem will be huge, and they're starting to communicate, to create ways of communicating between all those countries. And the markets, the regional markets, will be very, very interesting for, you know, everyone in the world.
Thank you, Pedro. And finally, Antonio, what is your view on the markets that you are familiar with?
So I've got to sort of go back through my experience over the years and sort of see what I did right, what I did wrong. And every market, at least the ones I mentioned, and I'm talking now cities, because even within the countries, every city is different. Saudi is a good example of that. But Tokyo, Dubai, Singapore, Riyadh, all of those are very local and have their specific worries and way to deal and to do business with. I've always been lucky with Tokyo. I learned that lesson where I have a partner there, Takeshi Miao. He's always been that local voice for me. And it's always, every single city that I mentioned is always about trust. If there's no trust, especially in the Middle East, there's that handshake, there's still that trust issue. You cannot do business over Zoom. They won't trust you, they won't do business with you. They've got to trust you almost without any doubt that you could do anything wrong, or they don't trust you. Once you get to that point, money is available. Riyadh, for example, is a good example of that, where even with NEOM changing and pivoting, there's still a lot of mega projects in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, but especially with the PIF, with the Public Investment Fund, lots of money there, it's very hard to extract money out of it. There's a lot of stages and barriers. Make sure that so there's money there, but it's not easy to extract unless they trust us. So it's always for the long term. There's nothing there for the short term. The one thing I've moved away where a lot of my business before used to be Europe, Japan, North America, especially between Middle East. Middle East always used to be a bridge between East and West, always. And it still is. But now things are changing. So Middle East is not just a bridge anymore. It's a place where innovation happens, disruption happens, and they want to do it there locally. And they want to do it, at least from my experience when I was there at NEOM, it's not just for the local market. They want to really create something that has an impact globally. So most of the projects, when you're done, first you've got to go global, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, but then those same universal rules you're doing for that project could go UK, London, or Tokyo, Japan. So whatever they're building there, they take it somewhere else. One good example that we're doing at NEOM is always, okay, can we take this to Ukraine, for example? Can Ukraine be rebuilt on top of this technology with all the years of war that they had? So that's sort of like some of the things that are happening. But going back to the word I mentioned most times is always about trust and people trusting you to do business with you.
Thank you. I think one of the questions that everyone thinks now about when we talk about Saudi, about Dubai, about Abu Dhabi and so on, is the current conflict. So let's take that out of the table and ask that you just came from there. Yep. Is it business as usual? Do you think that this can affect the way that innovation is being developed in the Middle East?
So I went to Dubai for business and pleasure to go there for a few meetings. I have a new project that involves AI, especially supporting sales in property and automotive. And I went there, already had 6 meetings booked. 3 of those meetings went really well. I actually have 2 new clients from those meetings. The other 3 were cancelled on Friday when things started going wrong. And then I stayed another week, but things calmed down. Especially from the government side, things are still going as usual, and they want to show that. But there's a slight worry. Locals are still going on, they're still waking up, still doing the business as usual. But you do hear the drones far away and explosions far away, so it is real. They have a lot of trust in their system that sort of is taking care of all the drones and knocking them down. There's a lot of trust on that, but there is a slight fear what's going to be next. And those 3 meetings that were cancelled for me, I've been talking to them, I've been chats with them, but they're not going to make any business decisions for the short term, at least until either Iran stops bombing them, because it was never expected. And I knew it could be a chance, especially with Israel attacking Iran, but no one expected then Iran to be bombarding Dubai, Qatar, all of those countries, Riyadh as well. So for them it was a surprise. Everyone was there. I think the locals are still 90% sure things will go back to normal. From an investment perspective, and taking these 3 potential clients, they're putting things on hold for a few months until see what's going to happen. So I think there's going to be an impact short term. I think long term things will go back to some normality and be okay.
Thank you, Miguel. Do you share the same views?
Yeah, business as usual. Of course, we have also the second biggest refinery, so it means the GDP, depending on oil, such we have in Saudi Arabia. Business as usual. But of course, I'm on the Red Sea side, on the west. I don't have, of course, the direct conflict eating us, and no comments.
Okay, thank you. And Pedro, you touched a bit about the advantages on how startups can look into the African continent. So on my previous life as a consultant, I was there also for a couple of years. And one example that people always shared was the M-Pesa, the digital currency in, I think it's in Kenya, where they leapfrogged the number of technologies to come with something that was way more digital. Do you think the opportunity in Africa is about leapfrogging technologies? Is it about gradually building the infrastructure that we have been doing in Europe? So what do you think is the right strategy?
Well, I still think it's to understand the context, because all of them can go different ways. One thing it's very useful if you're looking at that market is that if you're doing innovation, hyper regulation is a barrier. Some of these countries doesn't have the regulations we have in Europe that are too much, and then that can be sometimes can go wrong. But sometimes it's a green field for innovation, for doing things a different way, to explore the opportunities. So I see that as an advantage. Of course, the level of, if you compare Sub-Saharan with the top, of course, there are different levels of regulation for that. But I clearly believe that they are not They are much more prepared in these last 15 years, and they are not going to repeat the mistakes Europe are doing in terms of regulations. We are feeling, of course, we're working in banking, in the banking system. We feel from the regulators much more attention to certifications, for banks to comply with specific rules, etc. But we don't feel the same, we feel a different speed of decision, and that is also good for business. You see, the time frame between when you get a lead to close a deal can be much more quicker in these geographies, because less regulations, less approval, and the market needs the products, and that has to be done quick.
Antonio, I worked 10 years in Dubai, and when I compare what was Dubai in 2011 and when I left in 2022, I saw a completely different country on everything. I think that when I went there, everything was very manual still, very paper-based. When I left, everything was already automated and digital. So they moved very, very fast. And what Pedro just described about Africa is also my opinion about the Middle East, is that things move very, very fast. Is that also your view, and how do you compare it with the other Asian markets?
So the first time I went to Emirates was in 2005, I think, Abu Dhabi. So that was a completely different world to what it is now. I'll probably go back more to giving NEOM as an example. I think most of you are aware what NEOM was or NEOM is. They're trying to build this utopia in the middle of the desert. And they got in contact with me about 3 times. And that was also an interest. I'm a car guy, so to go to work on a mega project that doesn't have any cars, for me, like, I don't want to go there. And then they explained the reason they wanted me there, the director in this division. The reason they wanted me to be there is they wanted to build a city in the same way a car is built. So systems, technology, platforms, modules, assembly line, and then assemble everything in modules, then put it to, then build the city. That was the main reason I went there. But then projects, especially at NEMO, were moving very quickly, and they started doing innovation for other teams. And the one that I really got excited there, because for me it's always, if I can get involved with a project that does disruptive innovation, I'll get involved with it. So I'll get involved with a few projects, but the one that I really got interested was what they call the 5-minute neighborhood. So this 5-minute neighborhood where you can walk anywhere within 5 minutes and got access to university, hospital, school, whatever, you have access to that. And now you build the best 5-minute neighborhood that can be applied anywhere, not just in Saudi, not just in the middle of the desert, but could be applied anywhere in the world. And we did this. We had lots of technology. AI back there was still, talking about 2 years ago, still different from what it is now. We started using AI. And we did a lot of it that made sense and it was going in the right direction. We were quite proud of what we were building in that sense, that we could take those formulas and put it anywhere in the world and build the best 5-minute neighborhoods in the world. So that was quite exciting. But one thing that sort of towards the end I had to take a step back and be quite pessimistic was, it doesn't really matter how much AI you throw into a project, a 5-minute neighborhood, into buildings, how they connect to each other, I can walk 5 minutes, because we all know, even here in Portugal, in Lisbon, everywhere, it really depends on the people. It's all about the people. The best 5-minute neighborhoods, it depends on their people. It depends on the people that live there, the community, how they get to come together. So one thing that I'm noticing is sometimes we have to take one step back and not just focus on technology to improve everything. And I think Dubai, in some examples of projects I'm getting involved, they're now starting thinking about people as well, about the community, not just about having the biggest building in the world, but how then the community actually, what does it mean to be an emirate? And that's being talked all the time. So going back to your point, sometimes it's more going back to basics. Applying technology, yes, but being very careful, because at the end of the day, it's all about the people.
Thank you. And Miguel, you also have this investment expert side on your background. And when we think about Saudi and when we think about these countries, I think the first word that comes to our mind is it's a great source of investment. Do you think it's easy for a startup go and find investment in the Middle East?
Yeah, definitely. Again, because Saudi is open up to the world in terms of not only resources, but of methodology, so people can make it easy. We have an app and we have a centralized platform for everything. Me as a resident have through the platform called UpShare, I can hit and even pay the fines, check status, everything is done electronically. So these startups are, if they join us there in the effort to grow the country, they will find a virgin land in many fields. So I do recommend everybody here to take the risk, because they are welcoming technology, as everybody knows. And now with the Expo and the World Cup and the 4 economic cities that is growing, definitely there is room for everybody, and it's growing yearly, we can say.
From what you say, is not to just go there to try to find funds, is go there, find the market and find the funds. Is that correct?
Yeah. There is funds, there is a lot of funding in Saudi Arabia, as you know. It's not as used to be a couple of years ago, because I joined in 2019, and that's when PIF started to release the funds across the region. But I work for an entity called Royal Commission, which has their own royal decree, meaning it's coming only through the Royal Commission, not via PIF. So in this case, the funding comes through a guarantee that the economic city will give to the startup. So you give a guarantee there is work to be done, the work to be performed, that you cannot find in the kingdom, and from that point forward, they will support with the funding. Again, not as it used to be a couple of years ago. The geoconflict also modules the wheel, but definitely in terms of expertise, again, in terms of technology, is an open space. I do recommend the risk, yeah.
Great, and I think there will be a few smiles on our audience hearing you. So we are entering the last 3 minutes of our panel, and so I'm going to start asking quick questions so the audience can get your views. And I've seen a few people that have roles in driving and growing the Portuguese ecosystem. What would be one thing that you have seen in your geography that you work that Portugal could look at as a way to also grow and develop the innovation ecosystem? And Miguel, starting with you.
Well, my interference is limited because I only work with oil and gas, and I only work with ports and maritime sector. But what I do feel that the Portuguese can bring is the marine culture.
The opposite. What can we learn from Saudi Arabia as an ecosystem in order for us to further to grow faster our ecosystem?
I have a very private opinion about this. I hope people understand it, but I think the sense of identity. They feel that identity, the legacy of the country, they are completely in love with their own identity, and I think this helps a lot. And I think Portugal could also go back to the legacy we have as a country, as a people, and apply this into the union.
Thank you, Miguel. And Pedro, what do you think we can learn from the African culture that you have been exposed to?
Well, in terms of investment and technology?
As an ecosystem, what would be one thing that if we would be able to improve?
I think, sorry to repeat a little bit, but I think it's the creativity and the way of thinking that is possible, not waiting for the perfect conditions. I think they are more aware or less aware of the risk, and sometimes that is good. I see many ecosystems that, startups are like formatted to do this path. Like I'm a pre-seed, and then I am going to do this round and this round, this round. And what is the most important thing is to have sales. Sales. Other thing is, I think trust, as he told in the beginning, is also very important. So when you do business, try in that continent, try to deliver what you promise. because most of the opportunities come from reference, or people try to understand who did this and who did that. So sometimes it's good to, not to oversell and adapt the speech and the pitch we are doing in those markets to strictly what we're going to deliver and why. Otherwise, if we fail, trust is something that will curse you for a few years. I saw some bad examples of that. Yeah.
Thank you, Pedro. And Miguel, what could be something we could learn, but also given that we are just finishing our time, what would be one advice you would give to a startup that is really exploring the Asian markets?
It's tough. It's really, really tough. I wouldn't advise a really early on startup to go to Middle East as a main market straight away. Unless it's taking opportunity for something that's really disruptive, or maybe something that's being affected now. For example, having a war, maybe, unfortunately, there's going to be opportunities maybe to bring the country back or something in another way. But I don't recommend, without a strong basis or having already a solid foundation in Portugal, going to Middle East. It's tough. It's really, really tough. It's tough to get the contracts. It's tough to extract the money. There's a lot of money there. But then you need to have a strong foundations here to go and do it there. One thing that I really liked at Neom, I've been involved here with the Portuguese startup ecosystem around 2012, 2013. So before Web Summit, before all of that, one thing we're really good at, compared with other countries, is we're really good at providing quick solutions for that no one's thought out. We're really good at thinking outside the box and doing a lot better than English, Germans. Germans are good at certain things, we're good at certain things. So it's focusing where we're really good at. One thing that I learned at Neom that really had an impact on my work now is that they're trying to move away from an economy based on oil. So everything they're doing at Neom has a very strong financial model to be applied anywhere in the world. So they can do business anywhere in the world, not just with Aramco, which is the big company they have, but with smaller companies, small startups. So having partnerships with those companies is probably the best way of doing business there, rather than going there on your own and doing it. So try and learn what companies are there, startups are there, and try and do partnerships with those companies there.
So thank you everyone. I hope you found this panel insightful, and feel free then to connect with any of our speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.